All right, so today we're here to talk about tapped harmonics. One of Edward's many amazing techniques that he shared with us. So I'm going to teach you how to do tapped harmonics. I'm going to help you understand the theory behind them. And I'm also going to show you how you can use them in your own improvising. So you probably already understand natural harmonics. So you know how we've got one at the 12th fret and the 7th fret, and then at the 5th fret and the 4th fret. And they do keep going, but they're the only ones we're going to worry about today. Now, we can do those with a tapped harmonic. So if I just find this note here on the A string, that's a C note. And if I just find 12 frets above that, easy way is just to use the dots. We've got a dot here on the 3rd fret, and we've got a dot here on the 15th fret, exactly 12 frets above. So that means it's an octave above, which means there should be a nice juicy harmonic waiting for us. Oh yeah. Right, so how am I making this noise? What it is, it's just a tap right on the fret wire. So I'm not tapping here between the frets, I'm actually tapping on the fret wire. And I'll pull the guitar down here to show you what this looks like. So I'm just really aggressively hitting the string with the tip of my finger. I prefer to use the middle finger. You can use your pinky toe if you want. Whatever works. I think Steve I uses his tongue, so, you know, go for it. Now, if you really want to maximize it, give it some vibrato. Oh, yeah. So that's the core concept. And what EVH would often do is he wouldn't even pluck the note first. He'd just hammer it and then do a little tapped harmonic there. So if you're comfortable with that, we'll move on and we'll start looking at some other tapped harmonics. So if we go back to the 12, 7, 5, 4 thing, so the next harmonic will be 7 frets above. So this is on the 3rd fret. So 3 plus 7 is of course 10. So on the 10th fret we have another harmonic. Now this one is going to sound different. So this is the 5th of the note. So the 5th of C is G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that way we have the root here, C, and then a G here. So remember we had 12, 7, and 5. The next one is going to be 5 frets above the note. We're on the 3rd fret. What's 5 frets above? The 8th fret. Now this one's going to be a bit more tricky. As you go through these harmonics, you'll find it harder and harder as you get closer to the fundamental. So now we've got root, 5th, root, power chord. And as I said, this one will be more forgiving, and then it gets a bit trickier as you go. By the way, I should have said this earlier, if you're not using tons of distortion, that might make it easier for you if you're struggling with it. And of course, use the back pickup. On this guitar, I have no choice but to use the back pickup. You can use the front pickup. These things will just make it a bit easier for you if you want to gain confidence doing this because you're unfamiliar with it. Alright, and then lastly we've got the 4th fret above. I like this one because it sounds a bit quirky. It's the major 3rd. It makes it sound happy. Yay, happy major 3rd. But you'll notice it's the hardest one to get ringing by far, so you've got to be very accurate. And if it's not working, just try and move your finger around until you find the sweet spot. Alright, so we've got those 4 notes that we can tap on this C note. So what I'm going to do now is do some improvising using this and demonstrate how you can use this in your own improvised solos. So I'm going to be in the key of C major / A minor for all you metalheads out there. And I'm going to try and just drop as many of these in as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those eagle-eyed viewers out there would notice that I actually did the same thing up an octave. So this note here is also a C. And if you find this note and repeat everything we did on this note up by 2 frets, then you're in business. Now, because the notes are higher, it's generally harder to get all these to ring. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit harder. All right, and you might have also noticed I did something using the third, the E note. Now, I'm going to explain this down on the lower C, just because the note's a bit easy to grab. So, this highest harmonic of ours, E, in the key of C major, this E note, the next door neighbour to it, is F. So that means if we're playing that E note, we can bend it by a semitone, 1 fret, little bend, and that should actually sound pretty cool. So that's what I'm doing there, but it sounds a bit squirrely because you can still hear the fundamental slightly, which sounds a bit clashy, but that's one of the many things that Ed slipped into his playing that gave it a bit of grit and soul, you know? Now, if I did it on this note, it would clash a bit with the backing track, especially if it was in C major. But this one, that's one he used often. So it's just a really funky way of playing that lick. So this next trick I'm going to show you will blow your mind. It's a trick he used in the Beat It solo. He often uses it in his extended live solo, and I think he uses it at the start of Romeo Delight, perhaps. And it's this cool technique where he'll find a note. We're going to do this harmonic. Now, if we slide the fretting hand up to a D note, this 10th fret we're on is now the octave of this note. So we're able to keep this hand moving, but this hand still. How genius is that? So that opens up so many possibilities. You can do any pattern here, and this note will work. But obviously all the other harmonics change. So it's a bit like playing musical chairs, trying to do all of them, but it definitely expands the options. And I think Eddie was very excited when he realized that he could do so much with this technique. So right there, I got that wrong. I was thinking D, but I was actually on a C note. And guess what? It didn't sound bad. It didn't work as well, but it didn't, it didn't sound like that. So you can see so many times I got lost and I didn't know what I was doing, and it still kind of works. So as I mentioned, one of the great examples of this is in the Beat It solo. So he does that intro and then he goes... So we're on a D note here and he's doing 7 frets above. And then he slides up to E, so he's 5 frets above. I remember when I first learned this solo back in 2015, my mind was blown. I was like, that's so clever. Well, when you get it right. So as you can see, sometimes they're a bit difficult to nail. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, go me. Now, before we get on to this last technique, I just want to mention that if you are a Helix user or an HX Stomp user, I've got presets for all these Van Halen tones on my website. So you can go there right now and grab those tones and sound just like this. You don't need to buy a Variac or a vintage Marshall. You don't need to shock yourself across the room like Eddie did. You just need to download a file. Isn't it good? All right. So the final technique is the same concept, but over a few notes rather than just one note. So what I'm doing here is I'm fretting like an A chord on the 5th fret there. Just going to use one finger to mush those, as if you're playing a C major bar chord. So if we just take that, what I'm going to do is use my finger to... It's important that it's straight. You don't want it to be on an angle like this. You want it to be nice and straight. And you just want to smack those 3 strings. It doesn't matter if you smack the other strings, just try and keep them muted with this hand. And see if you can get all 3 notes ringing. So it's kind of that kind of look. Now, you could do the same thing by going up the frets, but it's not really advisable to go too high because it starts to sound a bit strange. Now, I think Eddie used this technique in Dance the Night Away. So what he would have had to do there is, over the E chord, it's fine, nice and straight, but then over the B, to replicate this shape, you'd have to do it on an angle. It actually works quite well because it's got that diagonal shape. So try it with any chord shape you like. Just bear in mind that you don't want it to be a chord shape that changes direction. If it's just one direction like this, you could probably just about manage it. And I forgot to mention, you can also do these one at a time, which sounds nice. That's actually how I finished off my latest Van Halen medley, the Sammy Hagar one. I did an A chord and I went... So I was 12 frets above, then 7 frets above, then 5 frets above. So if you know the notes, even if you have a vague idea of the notes, you can create some really nice sounds with it. But some of them do get harder to ring out as you go up. Alright, so thanks for watching, and next time we might get into some other kinds of harmonics maybe. Maybe we'll do pinch harmonics, or we'll do whammy harmonics, or we'll do natural harmonics. Who knows? All I know is see you next time.